The ceremonial first lighting to be a complete lens.
So Dan, you're kind of putting the finishing touches on this lens. Did you run into any difficulties that were kind of specific to this lighthouse design?
Yeah, we had a few challenges, not specific to the lighthouse itself, except for the lens. The lens had very little clearance at the top, so we were lucky enough to just kind of sneak it in. A little bit of challenges with the railing system, but it does fit. Overall, things went well. There were some challenges. We did have some things that we had to go back and fix a little bit, but overall, the installation went really well. Really happy with it.
So you were talking about going by the original drawings, the fact that this is 5.3.
Yeah, it's a little shorter than the standard third-order lens that I normally manufacture, simply because of the fact that these lowest prisms dive down into this horizontal member just above the bullseye assembly. It's easier to put them into the side frames, but this specific design had them truncated and mounted down into this horizontal member, which is a little more difficult. But that in itself made the lens between the top one and the one below the bullseye, made this lens about 3 inches shorter, which was very fortunate because you can see we have a very little clearance at the top of the lens.
I know when we were discussing this process and all trying to envision it, I'm not sure, I know I didn't ever envision that that light would actually fall down into the lens. So right now it's lit just by our existing light, correct?
Yes, it's lit by the ceiling light, which isn't going to cast a beam. It's just going to illuminate the lens, and you'll be able to see it a little better from the outside. It's going to create some refraction and reflection, so you'll see a little bit of sparkling as it, if you want it to rotate it just with the light, overhead light on. But it's not going to cast any beams until we actually turn on the lamp in the center at the focal point.
So you're saying you have the doors left to add, which are right here in front of us.
Yes.
And these would have been the access doors that the keeper would have used to maintain the lamps on the inside, correct?
Yes. Yeah, there's 2 doors. They're saloon-style doors, and they have a latch in the center. But yeah, that's how you gain access to the lens, to put fuel in the kerosene lamp, trim the wicks, and do some cleaning on the inside.
So we already have a bulb in the socket, I see.
Yes.
This is what we will be testing once the doors are in place? And,
yes, yes, it's a 1,000 watt halogen bulb. It's more than sufficient. I believe it's 70,000 lumens, so it'll be more than sufficient for a third-order lens. But we do have a dimmer switch at the bottom that you can actually dial it down to about 60 watts, just in case that 1,000 watt is a little too bright.
So I understand maybe one of the things that we'll be working on this evening here for a little bit is making some of those adjustments under the cover of darkness.
Yes.
Give us the best idea of how this might work out.
We're going to test this thing. We see how it can cast some beams. At 1,000 watts, it should cast some nice beams. There's 8 beams that'll come out of one beam out of each of the bullseyes, and the lens has 8 bullseyes. So there'll be 8 beams, kind of like spokes on a wheel, that'll slowly rotate. And if you're off at a distance, you're going to see that flash as that beam passes in front of your line of sight. And then in between the beams, if you're far enough away, you're not going to see any light. It'll be an eclipse, they call it. So that gives it its flashing characteristic. So depending on the speed of rotation, the number of bullseye gives you the flashing characteristic, which designates each of the lighthouses along the coast, so the mariners knew where they were at.
So this, no, the light is on a dimmer or a rheostat or something. The motor is also, so you'd be able to speed up and slow down the motor.
Yes, the motor is has a controller to allow you to rotate the lens at different speeds. So it'll rotate very slowly, maybe take a few minutes at one rotation, up to probably rotating faster than you'd want it to rotate. Typically these lenses rotate very slowly. I believe your original lens, from what I saw in the Coast Guard database, rotated once every 3 minutes, which was very slow. This probably, you can have this rotate a little quicker than that, but it's completely controllable.
Dan, on a personal note, do you have anything that you would like to share about this experience here in Port Isabel, Texas?
Except for the weather?
Which is now kind of clearing up.
Yeah, I was expecting a little better weather. In fact, I kind of picked November to have a little cooler in the lantern room, but unfortunately we've had very chilly temperatures with blowing wind and pelting rain for 2 days, so that was a little bit of a challenge. But I'd like to come back at a nicer time to actually visit the area. It's very, very nice. I like it.
We would love to have you back. Thank you so much, Dan.
You're welcome.